What's up, everyone? This is your host, Ghost, coming to you live with another wonderful video. How is everyone doing today? Doing well myself. Um, so we're going to talk about the Trump trial. It's the last bit of shit we're going to have to deal with for a bit, as these are closing arguments. Tomorrow, the jury will get their instructions. That's supposed to last an hour, and from there, they will deliberate. I won't cover the jury instructions because it's not that interesting. It's just I'm telling them, it's just judge telling them about the law and shit. It's not that very interesting. Um, So yeah, we're gonna find out the closing arguments. This is odd. I don't know how normal this is, but it's defense is going first and prosecution is going second. I don't think that's how it normally works. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think in opening arguments the prosecution opened and the defense closed, and it's normally how it normally goes. So I don't understand. I don't know. I guess maybe New York's different. Um, but yeah. So yeah. So, but it's very odd. But I don't know. But yeah. Let's see. What was I gonna say? It looks like or defense took 2.5 hours for their closing, and prosecution took 4.5 hours themselves. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I don't know if they did like half and half type shit where defense would go, then prosecution will go, and defense will go again, and then prosecution will go last. I don't know. I don't know if they did that or did a straight 2.5 hours and a straight 4.5 hours. I have no idea. Now remember what this case is all about. It's falsifying business records. So what this case is all about. Also remember that the only one they have that has verified that the business records are false was Michael Conan. That's the only one that has said no, these are false. These are not. I did not perform any legal services. This is not. That's the only one. That's the only one on the prosecution side. It was verified that the business records are false. So the prosecution's case hinges on, do you believe Conan? So it really believes it hangs on. Because you would have to believe Conan's telling the truth, be like, all right, well then he obviously didn't he obviously falsified business documents. Or Trump obviously falsified business documents, which is what this case is about. So we'll see. We'll see if prosecution convinces people of that. We'll see what defense does. But yeah. Um so a little housekeeping. Follow me on X at officialwghost. It's the best way to find out when I go live and what I'm about, what I'm up to. You can also watch me live as well. Follow me on Rumble, rumble.com/withghost as the main channel. I highly recommend and ask you all, wherever you're watching me, to move over to Rumble at some point and at least give me a follow there. You don't have to always watch me on Rumble, but at least give me a follow there. Yeah. YouTube is youtube.com/@withghost, and Twitch is twitch.tv/official with ghosts. My gaming channels for Rumble is Gaming with Ghosts. For YouTube is at official Gaming with Ghosts. Have yet to do any gaming streams and kind of busy. Yesterday, I was doing more of a makeup stream because I think I failed Tuesday morning. So I did 2 streams covering legal mindsets analysis of basically Rekieta's arrest. Uh, First was the Barnes argument, and then was the search warrant itself. So yeah, if you're interested in Rekieta, check that out. If you're not, still check it out. Regardless of what you do, make sure you give me a like and a follow on whatever you're watching, especially a like. All right, let's get into this and let's find out how closing arguments went. Again, remember, the prosecution's case hinges solely on whether you believe Conan. It's really what, like, I don't care what anyone says. That's really what the prosecution's case relies on. It relies on, do you believe Conan? Do you believe what he's telling you is true? Because he's the only one who's verified that the business documents are false. Like everything else was kind of like linking Trump to the checks that were written to Conan, and that he's a micromanager. That's all that's was really attributed to Trump. So now at this point, you got to think, well, is Conan telling the truth? That's $1 million question here. All right. There we go. All right. So at 9:30 a.m., court is in session. Judge Merchant is on the bench. The court is in session. Attorney Todd Blanche is expected to present closing arguments first, followed by prosecution Steinglass in a presentation of summations, which is expected to last all day, according to people familiar with the matter. There are no rebuttals. All right, so it's just gonna be a straight 2.5 hours for Blanche and a straight 4.5 hours for Steinglass. Judge previously said he expects to give the jury instructions on Wednesday, today, which should take about an hour. Blanche says he expects his closing argument to last 2.5 hours, maybe a little longer. Steinglass estimates his closing arguments will take between 4.4 hours and 4.5 hours. Merchant notes for the record that he gave the attorneys the jury instructions on Thursday afternoon. The parties did not flag any errors over the weekend. Merchant says he will ask the jury to stay later than 4:30 p.m. ET to fit it all, but he adds that he's going to leave it up to them. Waiting on the jury. Judge advised the attorney, please do not go into the law. Stay away from the law. Do not explain the law. That will be my job. I'll take care of it. That's very odd. That's kind of odd. Members of the jury, you will now hear the summations of the lawyers. Judge Merchant tells the jury. It's odd because it's generally a defense strategy to, say, hey, here's the burden of proof that the prosecution is required. This is what they're supposed to. That's what's law. Like if you watch like the Theodore Edgecombe trial, the prosecution there was A plus, and they went, like, the prosecution went to what was what was required. So the I think Theodore Edgecombe was like charged with he had a bunch of options at the end, but he was like first degree murder, and he went through all the elements that make it first degree murder. Then he went to second degree, and all the elements make it second degree. No, it was second degree. Yeah, Theodore Edgecombe was charged from like second degree and everything under. So it was like second degree and all the elements that were required, like manslaughter. That was all the things that were required. So that's kind of a weird, because that's the law. It's a very odd instruction by Merchant. Members of the jury, judge is laying out for the jury how closing arguments will go today. Under our law, defense counsel must sum up first. The prosecution must follow. The lawyers may not speak to you after that, Merchant says. Again, that just sounds odd. Everywhere else I know, they have prosecution go first and then the defense go last. Judge tells the jury, if they find the lawyer's arguments accurate and conclusion are reasonable, logic, and consistent with the evidence, then you may adopt those inferences and conclusions. It reminds them nothing the lawyers say at any time is evidence, so nothing the lawyers say in summation is evidence. It is your own recollection, understanding, and evaluation of the evidence that controls. He tells the jury, again, you and you alone are the judges of the facts in this case. So Blanche is delivering closing arguments as the defense team tries to appeal to the 12-person jury. So, Trump's team is expected to visit many of the arguments they made during the trial. The allegedly false documents were not false because Conan was working as a lawyer to President Trump in 2017, according to a source. They will revisit documents to show this argument and how the 420K Conan made in 2017 was similar to what he made on 2016 working for Trump. We're seeing that in evidence. Well, that's a good fucking word, or that's good help. Blanche begins every single closing argument starts with this. Thank you, jury. It's a thank you, jury. Let me kiss your ass, jury. Blanche begins his closing argument by thanking the jury for their service. Every one of you have been on time, he says. We see you paying close attention to the evidence all day, every day, and we really appreciate that, Blanche adds. Blanche is arguing that Trump is innocent, recalling his arguments from the start of the trial. I started out by saying that I'm going to repeat to you right now. It is as true right now as it was on April 22nd, and that is Trump is innocent. He did not commit any crimes, and the district attorney have not met their burden of proof, period. The evidence is all in, Blanche says. Blanche is slamming the testimony of prosecution's key witness, Conan, during closing arguments. The evidence should leave you wanting more. You should want and expect more than the testimony of Michael Conan. That's what I've been fucking saying. All you've got to say that the documents are false is Conan saying that the documents are false. That's all you got. That's exactly what I've been saying. You should demand more than the testimony of Davidson, an attorney who really was just trying to extort money from Trump in the lead up to the 2016 election, Blanche continues. Blanche argues the case is about documents, not Stormy Daniels. This is true. This case is about documents. It's a paper case. This case is not about an encounter with Daniels 18 years ago. An encounter that Trump has unequivocally and repeatedly denied occurred. And so is Daniels until right now. Yes, or until it was financially beneficial. Blanche says the jury is here to determine if Trump had anything to do with how payment to Conan were booked on his personal ledger for his personal account at Trump Tower. At the time, Trump was living in the White House. Conan was serving as his personal attorney. Blanche says the invoices were all submitted by Conan. Blanche says, you're going to hear me talk about a lot about Conan today, and that should not surprise you. You cannot convict Trump of any crimes beyond a reasonable doubt on the words of Conan, he said. Blanche says, that's true too. It can't reasonable doubt can't be eliminated just solely on a single witness word, and that's all they really have in this case. It's really just Conan's word saying these are false. That's all you got. That's all. That's everything they got. Blanche is arguing key witnesses who were mentioned during Conan's testimony did not testify. There were key conversations, key interactions, and he claimed he had with Dylan Howard, with Keith Schuyler, Alan Weiselberg. Those are important, Blanche says. Keith Schuyler, Dylan Howard, Alan Weiselberg were not witnesses in this trial, he adds. Yeah, so, I mean, that's another very good point. Because, again, it's up to the prosecution to prove their case. So they don't call these witnesses. There's no reason really for the Trump team to call these witnesses. There's no real reason because it's not up for them. It's not up for the prosecution or the defense to disprove the prosecution's case. Blanche says Conan's testimony was lies. They were lies, pure and simple, Blanche said. Blanche tells the jury that in order to convict Trump, they would have to determine there were false entries in the paperwork and Trump had intent to defraud. The records were not false and there was no intent to defraud, Blanche added. Also, there's no proof that the paperwork was false. The entries were false, except Conan's word. All we got is Conan's word. Blanche shows the courtroom a graphic that shows an invoice, a voucher, a check, and a check stub. The slide shows the invoice that was created by Conan was sent to Trump's organization, where accountants, personnel, including Deb Tassersoff, handled the processing. Blanche says the checks were auto-generated. Yeah, I think they pointed that out. Conan typically wrote for services rendered. But here's the thing, I don't even think there's dispute about this. Conan was rendering services to Trump as his personal attorney, Blanche says. Blanche acknowledged former accountant Deborah Tarasoft testified she often stapled invoices to the associated check to be signed by Trump. General practice is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt, Blanche said. Blanche says Tarasoft never spoke to Trump about anything to do with the checks or the invoices. Again, that's true as well. Let's see. Blanche is pointing out to Conan's email to Alan Weisselberg from May 2017, where he attached an invoice and asked Weisselberg to call me to discuss the last open foundation matter, suggesting Conan was working for Trump in 2017 while he was paid. Blanche is also arguing that Conan did the legal work in 2017 because there was a retainer agreement, pointing out to other retainer agreements Conan had as a consultant in 2017. Blanche specifically notes that Conan was paid $100K for 6 meetings with Novartis. That's how retainer agreements work, Blanche says. I'm assuming that the type was meant to be noting he was on call for the company, just like he was on call with Trump. Yeah, that's how I thought retainers worked. Blanche says the prosecution has suggested there was some conspiratorial agreement to reimburse Conan. He was working for free. That's what they said to you, Blanche said. Conan lied to you. Blanche said, punctuating each word. Conan lied to you. Trump's lawyers told the jury that Conan lied when he said on direct examination he did minimum work for Trump in 2017, but then acknowledged multiple assignments he worked on in 2017 during cross-examinations, like the Summer Zephyros lawsuit. Conan served as co-lead counsel. Blanche also alleges that Conan was lying when he said that there was never a retainer agreement with Trump in 2017. Again, all we got is Conan's word on that. They didn't call any other witnesses to prosecution. Didn't call any witnesses disproving that there was a retainer agreement. Blanche points to the email former Trump org CFO Weisselberg sent to Conan when he was leaving Trump org, which stated, "Please prepare the agreement we discussed so we can pay you monthly." You didn't see a retainer agreement. There is no evidence there was one ever put together. Blanche says the fact that there was a verbal retainer agreement from Conan and Trump is consistent with the practice from another lawyer you heard from, Davidson. Judge sustained one objection from Steinglass when Blanche suggested it didn't matter that there was no retainer agreement. I think that's a good point. He, meaning Conan, was Trump's personal lawyer. Period. Blanche says. Blanche asked if the retainer agreement makes sense or Conan. There's a reason why in life, usually the simplest answer is the right one. That's good. It's a good argument. Blanche is arguing that's the case here. The story Conan told you on the witness stand is not true, he says, for Conan's testimony. There's no evidence that Trump knew anything about this voucher system. No evidence, not a word. It's another point. Blanche tells the jury, if the government reads to you quotes from a book, you be suspicious. That's a red flag, Blanche says. If the reason the government is going to ask you to conclude that Trump knew anything about this voucher system is because something he wrote in a book where he was assisted by ghostwriters a decade earlier, there's a problem in the proof. Proof beyond reasonable doubt does not include a passage in a book from decades earlier, ladies and gentlemen, Blanche says. Blanche then focuses on ex-Trump executive McConney's email to former Trump accountant Tarasoft, instructing her to pay for from the trust post to business expense and put retainer. Each of these sentences should give you, without a doubt, reasonable doubt. Blanche says, that's funny. Should give you, without a doubt, reasonable doubt. Blanche is reminding juries that the Trump organization always labeled any expense coming from a lawyer as a legal expense in the company. He argues the government has tried to criminalize this practice as absurd. It's not a crime, Blanche says. Blanche shows the jury an email Connie sent seeking approval from Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. If there was an actual agreement between the three of them to pay Conan as a cover up, this email does not exist. There's no reason to get approval from Don and Eric if it's already decided we're going to pay uh, Conan $35K a month, but don't tell anybody. I mean, it's kind of a good point. Of course, that could be just, they kept Cotton. The argument could be that McConaughey was kept out of the loop and he didn't know that this was hush money. So, he didn't know to be cautious about it. And that's an argument. There's no proof of that. I'm just saying that's an argument. Blanche says prosecution could have called Don Jr. and Eric Trump to testify if they thought they were part of an alleged conspiracy to reimburse Conan. It's a good point. They were there. I think they were there every day. Blanche shows the jury the first two checks to Conan that are signed by Weiselberg and Eric Trump. One check was signed by Weiselberg and Eric, the other by Weiselberg and Don Jr. Both of these checks were approved by Eric and Don Jr., and President Trump had nothing to do with them. There's no evidence he had anything to do with anything involving these checks, Blanche argues. The check stub says retainer, which Blanche says is automatically generated from the system based on the voucher, which was inputted by TerraSoft, not Trump. So they're a good argument. They're just saying like, hey, Trump didn't have anything to do with this. Blanche is now walking through the testimony of former White House aide Madeleine Westerhout. Westerhout was one of the witnesses who told jurors Trump was very busy and said that sometimes he would look at the check she brought him and sometimes he would not. Blanche says, you can't convict Trump because sometimes, without being specific at all, Trump looked at invoices that somehow he had full knowledge of what was happening. That is a stretch, and that is reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. He's really doing really good at pushing all the reasonable doubt here. And there's a lot. Like there's more holes in this case than Swiss cheese. The leap that the government wants you to take, they looked at the checks and looked at the invoice as was part of a scheme. And remember what the scheme was to book an illegal expense as a legal expense that he was somehow in on that is absurd. Blanche also argues that there's nothing sinister about Trump personal checks being sent to Trump's employees' personal addresses rather than the White House in order to get them to Trump for a signature. It's common sense, Blanche argues, once individuals understand the slow-moving mail system at the White House. I mean, honestly, it does make a lot of sense to me. Like this whole I'm going to send it to one of my employees who's going to come into work, and that's probably going to be a lot fucking quicker than waiting for it to come through the mail. That makes a lot of sense to me, really. I would be surprised if a lot of other presidents didn't do the same thing. Blanche is now turning to Conan's testimony. How is the government going to ask you to convict Trump based on the words of Conan? That's what I've been pointing out this entire time. Blanche asks, what the people have done, what the government did for the past 5 weeks, at the end of the day, is ask you to believe a man who testified 2 weeks ago, Conan. Blanche says. Blanche adds that Conan's testimony not corroborated by anything. There's not a shred of evidence. Thank you. I've been pointing this the fuck out this entire time, Blanche says. I've had so many people like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It is totally corroborated. By what? No one can tell me by what. Conan is asking you to believe he was just working for free, Blanche said to the jury. Blanche says, do you believe that for a second? That after getting stiffed on his bonus in 2016, when he thought he worked so hard, do you think Conan thought, I'm going to work for free? Is that the man that testified, or is that a lie? That's another really good point. Like he was kind of bitter about being stiffed on his bonus. It would make some logical sense to me. Be like, hey, I'm not going to work for free this time. You're going to have to give me a retainer. That actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't really think of that, actually. Makes a lot of sense. He got stiffed on his bonus. He was kind of pissed off about it. So why would he work for free? Even if there's the potential of getting a bunch of lucrative contracts. For all he know, Trump would stiff him on that too. Blanche is now turning to the meeting in Trump Tower and Conan's testimony that Weisselberg turned to him and told him they were going to pay him over 12 months. Blanche argues there's nothing corroborating Conan's testimony that he met with Weisselberg and Trump while Trump was president-elect and that they went over the repayment plan. I would hope this would be broken, but like there's nothing corroborating that he met with Weisselberg and Trump while Trump was president-elect. And even if he did, there's nothing saying that he actually that's this what they discussed. All you got is Conan's word. It's a very good point. Yeah, the idea that Trump would agree to pay Conan $420K, even though he only owed him $130K, is absurd. Blanche says. I mean, again, it's a good point. They spent the entire time, like they spent a good amount of time talking about how frugal Trump is. That's a good point. That's what Mr. Conan wants you to believe happened in the meeting where Weisselberg walked in with a piece of paper and supposedly showed it to Trump. That is absurd. Blanche adds, placing extra emphasis on the last three words. So he said, that is absurd. All right. Something real quick. Got something here real quick before we get into it. All right. Ever feel like your IT bill is a ticking time bomb? Hidden charges out of scope of surprises? It's not enough to make any business owner lose their mind. We're the managed service providers that say no to billing nightmares. No more unexpected fees. No more gotcha invoices. No more. Just a straightforward flat rate pricing for all the IT support you need. We're talking unlimited help desk support, 24/7 cyber security monitoring, network planning, and that actually makes sense. The expertise that runs deeper than the Mariana Trench when it comes to Microsoft products. That's hilarious. We keep your system running smooth, protect you from those digital bad guys, and help your business grow. And the best part, you'll know exactly what you're paying for every single month. No fine print, no nasty surprises. So if you're tired of being nickeled and dimed by your internet IT provider, it's time to switch to the clear, simple choice RX-IT. We're the cure for IT billing headaches, IT peace of mind guaranteed. Visit www.rx-it.com. So, you're tired of internet headaches or IT headaches? Go to www.rx-it.com. That'll be linked in the comments. Thank you for helping me earn a little bit of money from Rumble. Appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. Let's see. Looks like this is the only money I'll get today. These are just campaigns Trump or not Trump or here it is that that Rumble does. So us small creators can get a little money. It's not a lot. It's only like a couple cents. Hey, All right. Witness testified they didn't know anything. Blanche is now arguing that both Conan and McConney testified they didn't know why Weisselberg grossed up the money. Conan said he didn't care why the figure was $360K. He just wanted to get his money. And McConney said nobody would know, Blanche says. The witnesses who actually testified in this court, one says, I don't know, and I didn't care. And the other said nobody would know, Blanche argues. Blanche says the prosecution might suggest that there was a tax scheme involved in the alleged conspiracy, but points out to Conan's testimony when he said he wasn't sure about how gross up of the amount would affect his taxes, and he didn't think about it. All right. Blanche is now showing the bank statement from Alan Weisselberg summed up the $42K repayments. The point of this document is it contains lies. Again, you have to accept, if you accept Conan's version of what happened, that they were all in this together, Blanche says, of Conan, Weisselberg, and Trump. Blanche is now shifting to the Oval Office meeting on February 8th, 2017, and Conan's testimony that he and Trump discussed the hush money payments. It was a big day. He told he was going to the Oval Office for the first time in his life, meeting his boss. And Conan testified he had a conversation about the checks and about the money. Blanche says, that's what he wants you to believe. And then 6 days later, Conan emails McConney asking how much the money payment would be for. Blanche says facetiously, the government wants the jury to believe that after a confirmatory agreement between Conan and Trump about the scheme in the Oval Office, but just 6 days later, Conan doesn't even know how much it was supposed to be. Yeah, I would think, I didn't catch this during the test, but yeah, I would think that if you're going to come and say, you're going to come and scheme, the number would remind that number would stick out. That you'd be like, oh yeah, this is the number I'm going to get. That makes sense to me. Okay, Blanche is going back to the handwritten document from Trump, from Weisselberg and McConney about the repayments to Conan. Blanche questioned why McConney would have kept them in with payroll documents if there was some evidence of a crime. He didn't get rid of them. He didn't try to destroy them. Blanche says, again, the argument could be made. I wouldn't be surprised if the prosecution makes this or not, that McConney was not in on the scheme, so he didn't know about it, so he didn't know what to to destroy any evidence. That could be the argument. Blanche brings up the legal standard. Prosecutor needs to prove that Trump caused records to be falsified with an intent to defraud. How do you know there's no intent to defraud? You saw in the evidence that the Trump organization reported this. There's a 1099 that reflects the payment from the trust and Trump's personal account to Michael Conan. Blanche says Trump org sent the forms to Conan, whose duty it was to report the income for taxes. The 1099 filing shows the Trump org disclosed these payments to IRS, both from the trust and from Trump's personal account. Blanche says there's nothing criminal about that. It's the way it's supposed to be done, he argues. Blanche shows jury the tweet from 2018 when he refers to this as a retainer agreement. There was an intent to defraud. Why would he do that? Blanche says. Ask. Let's see. Blanche briefly showed the jury the Office of Government Ethics form from 2017 that shows a note about the payment to Conan from the Revocable Trust. How can it be there wasn't any attempt to defraud by Trump when he disclosed it to the IRS? He tweeted about it and he submits it on his Office of Government Ethics form. Blanche asks. Another good question. Blanche is now turning to the electoral conspiracy part of the case, arguing the government says Trump falsified records in 2017 after he won the election. The charges relate to documents in 2017. The government wants you to believe that Trump did these things with his record to conceal efforts he promoted his successful candidacy in 2016, the year before. Trump's attorney argues that every campaign in this country is a conspiracy to promote a candidate. A group of people working together to help you win. You have to find that this effort was done by unlawful means. Blanche highlights the testimony of ex-National Enquirer publisher Pecker that it was standard operating procedure to work with politicians. That is true. Blanche turns to the 2015 Trump Tower meeting with Pecker. Blanche notes that Pecker had agreed to publish flattering stories about Trump and attack his opponents. This is the same thing AMI had been doing for decades. They had been doing it for Trump since the 90s. Blanche says this was good business for him, a mutually beneficial relationship with celebrities. Oh, yeah. Apparently, De Niro was out in the courthouse in New York and was blasting Trump and everything. And I just want to be like, look, I like you as an actor, but why the fuck do I give a shit about your political opinions? All right. Blanche says it's preposterous to think Trump and Pecker believed stories in the National Enquirer could determine the result of the 2016 election. The idea, even if there was something wrong with it, the idea that sophisticated people like Trump and Pecker believed that positive stories in the National Enquirer could influence the 2016 election is preposterous, he argues. You notice that circulation that's required at the time was 35 K, 350K, sorry. Millions and millions of people voted in the 2016 election. So the idea that they really thought that this meeting in 2015 at Trump Tower would ultimately influence the election makes no sense. Blanche says. Blanche also tells the jury to remember that the National Enquirer usually repurposed stories from other outlets. The idea that National Enquirer could criminally influence the election by republishing stories that had already been out there in other forms should make you shake your head. It makes no sense, Blanche says. With a PowerPoint titled No Election Influence, Trump's attorney, Blanche, is now showing the court many of the negative headlines about Trump's 2016 political opponents. Excuse me. Blanche notes that there's no discussion of catch and kill in the August 2015 meeting when this supposed criminal conspiracy was formed. It wasn't even discussed at the time the conspiracy was found. No financial discussion. No discussion about catch and kill. Think about it, Blanche says to the jury. An argument here could be that they didn't know there would be any stories that would come out that would require a catch and kill at the time. That could be an argument. Blanche shows the jury another excerpt from Pecker's testimony, where he says the National Enquirer would only publish about half the stories it would buy. Referencing Pecker's long-running experience in the industry, Blanche says it's meaningful when he says that he hadn't heard the phrase "catch and kill" before reading an article about the allegations linked to this case. Blanche highlights Pecker's testimony involving Dino Sajudin, a Trump Tower doorman, who was selling information that Trump allegedly fathered a son. Pecker said if it proved to be true, he would have published it after the election. That doesn't sound like a catch and kill at all. This isn't catch and kill, it's an opportunity, Blanche says. Blanche is now pulling excerpts from Conant's testimony. Conant testified during the prosecution's first round of questions that he told Trump about the doorman's allegations because he wanted to get credit from Trump. When questioned by the defense during the cross-examination, Conant said he didn't tell Trump all of the details. Again, on direct, he says one thing. On cross, he says another. He's not telling the truth. He's lying. That's funny. Blanche shows 4 instances where Conant admitted he'd report his work on things like the Dino Sajudin story to get credit from Trump. Blanche says this is consistent with Hope Hicks' testimony that Conant often sought credit. Blanche says Conant used the phrase credit repeatedly and tells to the jury that's the same phrase that Hicks used in describing Mr. Conant. She described Mr. Conant as being someone who always wants credit. Mr. Conant admitted to you that he was following this trial before he testified. Just think about that for a minute. That's good. He's basically alleging that Conant tailored his testimony to fit the narrative that was being said. That's a good argument. That's a good argument. You turn to face. So they're now talking about McDougal. Excuse me. This is not a catch and kill either, Blanche says. Miss McDougal did not want to publish her story. She wanted to jumpstart her career. Blanche says again that it was not McDougal's intention to publish a story. The reasons why this matters is that there was never any risk that her allegations would influence the election because she didn't want her story published. Blanche argues that this matters because the government is alleging a conspiracy to influence the 2016 election, arguing that the second of the 3 alleged catch and kill stories didn't want to influence the election at all. She didn't want her story published. Blanche says nothing about the McDougal situation was illegal. None of that was criminal, Blanche says. Blanche argues that Conant also lied about conversations with Trump related to McDougal's deal. Blanche highlights Pecker's testimony that Trump told him, "I don't buy stories," and Conant says Trump told him, "No problem, I will take care of it." Which one is true? You know that Trump organization Trump, you know that the Trump organization, Michael Cohen never paid Mr. Pecker a penny for the McDougal stories. There's no dispute about it. This was a conversation Trump had with Pecker in summer 2016 over the phone while Pecker was meeting with investors in Chapman. Blanche alleges that Conan made up this testimony about a lunch with Pecker in 2016 when Conan said Pecker told him, I need to get this money back. Blanche tells the jury the lunch did not happen. Conan made it up. Blanche suggests that even if Pecker just forgot about the lunch, he argues that there was no other proof that the lunch happened, like a credit card receipt. That's true. That's a good point. Again, the prosecution didn't bring any corroborating evidence. It just was like, just believe this person. Just believe Conan. Like, they could have easily brought out a credit card receipt proving that. They didn't. Blanche has turned to the 2016 recording Conan made of Trump, which said he taped to prove to Pecker that he would be paid back. He argues that McDougal was not discussed in the recording. Blanche played a few seconds of the recording with Trump. Graf, Trump's long-time assistant, can be heard in the recording. Blanche points out that no questions were asked of Graf related to the recording. Defense attorney focused on Conan telling Trump that it was all the stuff on the call. Blanche referenced the concern about buying the document that Pecker supposedly had of Trump. It was extremely important at the time to buy that box of stuff, Blanche says. There's no discussion of McDougal. They're talking about buying the stuff. Listen to the government claims on the transcription that there's a word Trump says 150. Listen to the recording. See if you hear 150, or see if you have no idea what you're hearing at all. That's hilarious. If it's really 150, why is it the next thing you hear from Conan say we'll have to pay him something? Blanche asks. Bottom line is there's no doubt this recording discusses AMI and Mr. Pecker. There's a lot of doubt that it discussed McDougal. Blanche notes that Trump didn't know what Conan was talking about when he was talking about financing on the call. Trump clearly has no idea what he's talking about. This conversation, Conan and Trump are literally talking past each other about what's going on, Blanche argues. Blanche zeroes in at the end of the recording when Trump says check before the audio cuts off. Blanche suggests Trump was starting a new sentence. You have no idea what was said afterwards, but it's not what he told you, Blanche says. He told you that he got a phone call. He told you that he knew who the call was from, someone who worked for the bank. He said it was someone named Kathy Babel. You don't know about the integrity of this file and this recording, Blanche says, of Conan's 2016 recording. Actually, that's a good point. He could be like, check with, like Trump could have been saying, check with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or check on this. I want you to check on that. Or well, check on this, check on that, whatever. So there's no obvious, it's a good point there. Blanche reminds the jury the phone records show Conan did not pick up the phone call that he says interrupted the recording of his conversation with Trump. He lied to you when he said he answered the call, Blanche says. Blanche now shows the AT&T phone record and the AT&T witness testimony that the phone went to voicemail and was not answered. Oh, shit. I didn't catch that either. Blanche is now turning to Stormy Daniels, noting it is a story that took place in 2006, 18 years ago. Trump and Ms. Daniels have repeatedly denied it took place, Blanche says. Blanche argues that Conan made a decision to pay $130K to Ms. Daniels. He didn't tell President Trump about it because he knew he could get credit for doing something to help Trump at some later point. Blanche says people were not happy with him on the campaign, so he made this decision. The only person who suggested otherwise and tells you Trump knew everything about this is Conan himself. That's it. There's no other proof of that. Again, I've been pointing this out for weeks. There's no way that you can find that Trump knew about this payment at the time. It was made without believing the word. It was made without believing the words of Conan, period. You cannot believe his words. Blanche says Daniels wanted the allegation about Trump pulled down from the website, The Dirty, in 2011 because she couldn't sell the story. Because then she couldn't sell the story. That's a good point, too. What are you talking about? No, it's because of some guy who threatened her, like, wait, was it before or after that? I don't remember. Blanche suggests that Daniels' story was already out there in 2011. It was not election interference. It did not cause panic in the Trump campaign. The public was aware of them. So again, the idea that when Daniels surfaced in 2016, that it caused some sort of panic amongst everyone is not true. Just not true, Blanche says. Blanche refreshes the jury on text messages they saw between Howard and Rodriguez about selling Trump's story in April 2016. If that there was really a catch and kill conspiracy relationship, then why did everyone ignore that story in April? Why did it not go anywhere for months and months and months? Blanche asked. Blanche also brings up text messages exchanged between Rodriguez and Howard in June 2016, noting that Howard writes, "Not much pisses me off these days except Donald Trump." Blanche says there's no scenario in which Mr. Howard can be part of this conspiracy. It appears he doesn't like Mr. Trump at all. Blanche goes on saying that the jury didn't hear from Howard nor from Rodriguez, so he said it's really speculative. Daniels and Rodriguez were more aggressive trying to sell her story, Blanche says. Mr. Howard is willing to help him. He wants to help Miss Daniels and Mr. Rodriguez get the money. That's not a conspiracy involving Pecker, Trump, or Conan. Another good point. All right, there's a short break. Oh, it's a short break. Finally. All right, at this point, he has 30 minutes left. He spoke for an hour and 54 minutes before the break. The start of the day, he estimated his closing arguments to be 2.5 hours, maybe a little bit longer. So the judge says the court may take a lunch break early today once Blanche is done with the defense closing. However, he's not committal, saying depends on the time. Judge says the jury was going to go late today as each side seeks to finish up closing arguments. Merchant commented that the jury may need a snack run, and they seemed to like that. He did not specify how late. I think they went to like 8 or something like that. Defense attorney Blanche is back at the podium. He picks back up with Stormy Daniels in 2016. Ms. Daniels has denied that there was ever any sex with Trump in 2018 and earlier. Blanche says, but the government wants you to believe those statements were coerced. Blanche is also questioning Daniels' statement, saying she was threatened in 2011, and that's why she went public with the story involving Trump. Again, that whole thing was like, it didn't make any sense to me at all. Like, oh, there's a threat, and so that's why I'm trying to sell my story to end the threat. What? No. That'd just make you die. There was really a threat. Blanche is now playing more of the recordings between Davidson and Conan. In the recordings, Davidson, who was Daniels' lawyer at the time, says sometimes people get settler's remorse. At the end of the day, what really happened is that someone offered more money to Miss Daniels. Someone offered to pay her legal fees. If she got out of the NDA, she signed with Mr. Conan. This started out as an extortion. There's no doubt about it. It ended very well for Miss Daniels, financially speaking. What is clear from the evidence now, going back to 2016, the agreement that Miss Daniels entered into is that there was a separate conspiracy between Daniels, Rodriguez, and Howard, and their goal was to make as much money as possible off of Trump, Blanche says. Let's see. Blanche tells the jury there's nothing illegal, there's nothing sinister about the NDA settlement agreement with Daniels. Trump lawyer says again, there's no evidence except for Conan's words that Trump knew about the agreement in 2016. Now, I don't think they put this into evidence, but, obviously, Trump sued Daniels for breaking the NDA. Oh, no, this was put in evidence, so we'll see if prosecution touches on that. After the Access Hollywood tape came out in October 2016, Blanche says Miss Daniels and Miss Rodriguez seized an opportunity. Speaking of Daniels and her then publicist, Rodriguez, Blanche says they thought now's the time to strike. Blanche shows a text message between Howard and Rodriguez saying that he believed Pecker would pay for Daniel's story. Yeah, I'm sure the prosecution is going to come around and say, like, hey, he sued her for breaking the NDA, so he obviously knew about it at the time. Well, I guess he could just be told that he was made aware of it at that time. There's no proof he actually knew about it when it was happening. So he knew about it when Daniels tried to come out it, and he's like, hey, Conan, it could have been easily for like Conan told him, hey, we got this NDA by her, by the way, she can't be talking about this. I don't know. Blanche continues to speak about the catch and kill stories that prosecutors have brought up in the hush money trial through witnesses and testimony and exhibits. So again, we're here to talk about a conspiracy between Pecker, Trump, and Conan to catch and kill stories. And here you have Daniels coming forward on Access Hollywood. This is our chance. This is it. And Pecker's saying, nah, I want nothing to do with it. That's our conspiracy. That's the 3 catch and kills, Blanche says. I want nothing to do with it. I'm not buying that story. That's what they're telling you, Blanche continues, raising his voice, pacing in circles, raising his arms as he acts exasperated to the jury. Blanche addresses the 2016 Access Hollywood tape, saying it was an extremely personal event for Trump. Nobody wants their family to be subjected to that sort of thing. He says, doesn't matter whether you're running for office, doesn't matter whether you're running The Apprentice, doesn't matter whether you're a normal everyday person in the city. Trump did not react to Access Hollywood tape as the government suggested. Blanche says, I'm not suggesting it wasn't a big deal for the campaign, of course. It was. But Blanche notes from White House aide Madeleine Westerhouse that made clear that Trump didn't freak out. He also noted Hicks believed it would be a story for the next several days. The version that says anything different comes from one witness, Conan, Blanche says. Another good point. Let's see. Blanche is now arguing that Daniel's story was not a doomsday event for the Trump campaign. It was one of many stressful stories that came up during the 2016 campaign. It was not a doomsday event, Blanche says. Blanche says Trump never thought it was going to cause him to lose the campaign, and indeed, it didn't. Conan, however, had a different view, Blanche adds. Nothing was criminal in entering into this NDA, Blanche says, referring to the non-disclosure agreement with Daniels. Doesn't mean when Trump was out campaigning that he knew about it. The only person at trial who told you Trump knew about it in October, September, and August was Conan, Blanche continues. Blanche poses the question to the jury. Why did prosecutors call Daniels when there was no dispute that there was an NDA settlement and she knew nothing about Trump's internal business practice? Why, I tell you. Why? I'll tell you why. They did it to inflame your emotions. They did it to try and embarrass Trump. Yeah, Blanche says, yeah, that's exactly why they did it. 100%. They wanted to embarrass Trump. They wanted to fan the flames. Like Daniels had nothing really pertinent to this case at all. This was a false document case. Why is Daniels on the stand? Judge overruled an objection from Steinglass over the statement. That's why, Blanche says again. Blanche is playing a recording of Conan speaking to Davidson in October 2017, where Conan says, who else would do that for someone? Who else? I did it because I care about that guy. I wasn't going to play penny wise, pound foolish. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, what about me? He argues the phrase gives a little insight into Conan's state of mind. It made perfect sense for Mr. Conan in 2016 to make payment without telling Trump about it. So he could get a fancy job if Trump won and a better job internally if Trump lost, Blanche says. Blanche reminds the jury that Conan said, what about me? He suggests the recording is telling as to Conan's state of mind when he brokered the settlement with Daniels. Blanche reminded the jury that Conan testified about his personal wealth and said, so the idea Conan never would have made the $130K without getting approval from Trump is something you should question. Blanche is now turning to Conan's call with Daniels' lawyer Davidson in December 2016. Sorry. Davidson testified that Conan told him that he was up for jobs in the Trump administration and was upset he didn't get them. He told you he didn't want a job in the administration, but that's a lie. That was a lie. Another lie, Blanche says to the jury of Conan. Mr. Conan had an axe to grind because he didn't appreciate what Trump did and did not do for him after he was elected president. Blanche adds. That's a good point. Blanche is now moving on to Conan's interaction with Bob Costello after federal investigators raided his properties in 2018. You know there was a attorney-client relationship between Bob Costello and Conan, and so does Conan. There's no doubt about that, Trump's attorney says. Blanche says phone records show Conan and Costello spoke more than 70 times. Blanche notes that Costello told Conan the best way out of the situation after the FBI raided his home and office would be to provide information to the feds. In that environment, under all that stress, facing the biggest crisis of his life, he said to Mr. Costello, President Trump did not know. Blanche says, I don't know how many lies is enough to reject Conan's testimony, Blanche says. Costello was an attorney who, we all know that. Blanche is addressing the Stormy Daniels agreement, which Trump never signed. What Trump knew in 2016, you only know from one source. And I said that a few times. But it matters, and that's Conan. They showed the phone records. They showed him calls between him and others to help him help his testimony seem more corroborated and more credibility. But we all know how that ended, he says. Blanche has zeroed in on the cross-examination moment involving Conan's testimony about the October 24th phone call to Trump's former bodyguard, Keith Schuyler's phone. That was his sworn testimony. It was a lie. It wasn't a little lie. This was a lie about the charge conduct involving Miss Daniels. He told you he talked to Trump on October 24th at 8:02 p.m., updating him about Daniels' situation. That was a lie, and he was caught red-handed, Blanche said as he raised his voice and emphasized each word. We all know he called Schuyler to talk about the fact that a 14-year-old had been harassing him for several days and forgot to block his number. And Mr. Conan wanted to fix that. On redirect, Blanche says, they showed you a picture with unremarkable fact that everybody already knew that Trump's bodyguard was with him on October 24th. No kidding. Thanks. Blanche told the jury that it was clear they were talking about the teen prankster because he hung up and texted Schuyler about the situation. Then followed up the next morning, Blanche raised his voice again and said, that is perjury, emphasizing each syllable of the word perjury. Perjury. They're perfectly happy to have a witness commit perjury to lie to you. Blanche says to the jury, raising his voice. Steinglass objects, the judge sustains. Yeah, of course they're going to sustain, but it's out there. Blanche says when the prosecution conveniently showed the jury the phone records during Conan's testimony on direct examination on October 24th, 2016, call records, they left out the text between Conan and Trump's bodyguard, Schuyler, that Blanche says gives the appropriate context. We put them into evidence. Now you know what happened, Blanche says. Is there the same absolute proof of every single thing the man's told you? No, there's not. For that, we have what's called an oath, Blanche says. Blanche moved to another instance where Conan allegedly lied. There's another time he lied to you, Blanche says. Text from the president's wife. Please call the president. Blanche noted the phone records indicate there was no call from any of Conan's phone to Trump that day. Steinglass objected to Blanche as he pulled Conan's phone records about text messages from Melania Trump, asking Conan to call Trump. Lawyers approached the bench briefly. Sorry about that. So I guess he lost this argument. Blanche says Conan didn't take the oath he took, promising to tell the truth seriously. He repeatedly lied under an oath. He lied to his family. He lied to his wife about the home equity line of credit. He lied to his banker, Blanche says. He's literally like an MVP of liars. Blanche adds. Blanche raises Conan's testimony during which he admitted that he stole $60K from the Trump organization. He's also a thief. He literally stole on his way out the door, stole tens of thousands of dollars through the Trump org, Blanche says, alleging that Conan admitted to a felony on the witness stand and was not prosecuted for it. Blanche says, if anything, what should matter to the jury is what Conan said under oath in this courtroom at the time, and he lied to you. Make no mistake about it. I'm guessing they're about to be done here. Blanche is now replying to clips from Conan's Mea Culpa podcast where he talked about Trump being indicted and praising Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. In one clip, Conan is heard saying that picturing Trump being booked fills me with delight. And in another, Conan says, I want to thank Manhattan DA's office and their fearless leader, Alvin Bragg. Blanche reminds the jury Conan lied in the podcast clip when he said he met with Bragg all the time. They never actually met. Blanche is also showing Conan's tweet selling the t-shirt showing Trump in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. But you know that the lie is simply to benefit and protect Conan and nobody else, period. Let's see. Blanche is now giving 10 reasons why the jury should have reasonable doubt. Each of one of these reasons make a not guilty verdict a very easy path and very quick path, Blanche says. The first reading list is that Conan created the invoices. Okay, I was going to say, are they really not going to point this out? All right, so Blanche is presenting the jury with 10 reasons they should have reasonable doubt. Here's the full list according to Blanche. Michael Conan created the invoices. There's no evidence Trump knew the invoices were sent. There was absolutely no evidence of intent to defraud. There's absolutely no attempt to commit or conceal another crime. There's absolutely no agreement to influence the 2016 election. AMI would have run the Dorman story no matter what if it was true. McDougal did not want her story published. Daniel's story was already public in 2011. There's a manipulation of evidence. 10, Michael Conan, he's the embodiment. He's the human embodiment of reasonable doubt. That's hilarious. All right. Blanche is now taking off the Times. Conan lied to lied to Congress, to the Justice Department, to judges, and to his family. He lied to you repeatedly. He lied many, many times before you even met him. He says he is biased and motivated to tell you a story that is not true. He's literally the greatest liar of all times. Blanche adds, calling Conan the gloat. Oh, that's good. If you guys don't know, when someone is called the goat, it's called the greatest overall. No, goat. Shit, what's that acronym? Oh yeah, so yeah, it's greatest of all time. So if someone they're called the goat, it's the greatest of all time. Now he's calling him the gloat, the greatest liar of all time. That's hilarious. I like that. It's really smart, Blanche. Blanche was hilarious. Blanche began to wrap his closing by zeroing in on the defense's argument that jury cannot believe Conan's testimony. His words cannot be trusted to you. I'm going to end this nation the same way I told you a few minutes ago, that you know you cannot rely on him. Conan lies to family when it matters, when it doesn't. Then he came here, he raised his right hand and lied to each and every one of you repeatedly. You cannot send someone to prison. You cannot convict someone based on the words of Conan. Steinglass objected to Blanche's prison remark, which was sustained by the judge. I really wish he also pointed out that. Oh, okay. As he wraps up his closing argument, Blanche told the jury, this isn't a referendum on Trump. This isn't a referendum on your views on Trump. This is not a referendum on the ballot box, Blanche says. I really wish she pointed out his end should be, Mr. Conan admitted in court here that he lies when it's personal to him. And then he admitted a few minutes later that the Trump trial is personal to him. That's how Blanche should have edited it. My opinion. But this guy's, an actual lawyer. I'm just some nobody who doesn't know shit. Relies on other lawyers. Blanche said he'd give a curative instruction on defense attorney Blanche's remarks about sending Trump to prison. During his closing arguments, Blanche talked about Conan's credibility. Then he came in here, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Merchant says Blanche's comments was outrageous. You know that making a comment like that is highly inappropriate. It's simply not allowed. Period. It's hard for me to imagine that was accidental in any way. The judge says, referencing Blanche's experience as a prosecutor and defense attorney. Steinglass has raised the issue and asked for a curative instruction for the ridiculous comment. That was blatantly and wholly inappropriate effort to get sympathy for Trump. Steinglass also said Merchant should reconsider a curative instruction about retainer agreements because he said Blanche doubled down that it's perfectly possible to have no retainer agreement when that is not the law in New York State. That was debated at the charge conference last week, and Merchant said he'd look into the law. All right, now we're going to get to prosecutions closing. Now as he just back on the bench, Merchant begins by asking for prosecutors. He asked for their proposed curative instruction about discussing sending Trump to prison. Judge and attorneys are discussing the issue of curative instruction as defense Blanche remarks about sending Trump to prison. During his closing argument, Blanche says he drafted a curative instruction on the prison comment and retainer agreement issue. Trump and his attorneys both. Blanche reviewed the paper. Blanche says there's no objection to the language of curative instruction regarding the prison comment, but says they don't believe he misstated the law as to retainer agreements in his closing argument. Merchant says he will give the curative instruction on Blanche's prison comment as written. He says he will not give the instruction on the retainer agreement, saying he will, while he understands prosecution's frustration, he thinks an instruction from the bench to the jury would call more attention to it than it's worth. All right, so this is gonna be a 4 to 4.5 hour fucking closing. So we'll see how good they do it. Steinglass is delivering the prosecution closing argument. Mike was not working at first, but it was fixed. He is expected to tie together text messages, phone logs, other witness testimony, and 34 alleged false documents to corroborate Conan's testimony as the prosecution tries to appeal to a 12-person jury before they begin to deliberate. In the defense summation, Blanche asks you to substantiate that you cannot send the defendant to prison. The comment was inappropriate, and you must disregard it in your deliberations. You might not discuss or even consider or even speculate as to the matter related to sentence or punishment. I mean, I disagree. But whatever. Who cares? In his opening, Ms. Colangelo told you that this case, at its core, is about conspiracy and cover-up. Then why isn't he charged with conspiracy and cover-up? Steinglass says, recalling Colangelo's opening statement. In his closing argument, Steinglass says the conspiracy was to corrupt the 2016 election, and the cover-up was an effort to hide the conspiracy to falsify business records to disguise. We ask you to remember to tune out the noise and ignore the sideshows, Steinglass tells the jury, and you've done that. You will see the people will present powerful evidence of the defendant's guilt. No, you won't. You really won't. Oh, man. I don't even know what he's going to say, but I know they're not going to have enough shit for that. Uh, Sanglass focused on Blanche's accusation that evidence may have been manipulated, saying they only have recordings of 2 of 11 phones. Says prosecutors don't have all the phone data from the parties involved, so the jury should note that the absence of a particular phone record doesn't prove that the call did not happen. It also doesn't prove that the call did happen, though. Some of the conversations in this case took place in person, so there wouldn't be a phone call or record. The fact that there isn't a record of a particular phone call doesn't mean a particular conversation did not take place. Again, doesn't mean that a particular conversation did take place. Sanglass says it's just not reality that Daniels was extorting Trump. Really? If you tell, then if you don't pay me, I'm going to tell this story to try and upset your prospects as president. That's not extortion? I think that is extortion. Sanglass continues his closing argument. The conspiracy is to unlawfully influence the 2016 election. You don't need Conan to prove that one. But he says, I agree. You don't need Conan to prove that. Prosecution needs to try and prove that. You also need Conan to prove that the business documents were false. Let's see. Steinglass calls Pecker's testimony utterly damning. Pecker has absolutely no reason to lie. He still considers Trump a friend, a mentor, and his testimony was utterly devastating. Was it really? Steinglass says the Pecker's testimony eliminates the whole notion that this was politics as usual. You don't need Conan's testimony to prove there was a conspiracy. I mean, okay. To be sure, some witnesses want to see Trump convicted, says Steinglass. They've been attacked by the defendant on social media. Prosecutors acknowledge that Daniels is one of them. They've shamed her. They tried to suggest her story has changed over the years. It has not. It has, actually, at least not in any way that's significant. To be sure, there were parts of her testimonies that were cringeworthy, Steinglass says. Steinglass is arguing that some of the details in Daniel's story ring true, like what Trump's hotel suite looked like and the contents of his toiletry bag. I mean, was there evidence that she take it? How do we know that's true? Okay, she could have just added some random detail. Oh, he had this stuff. Okay, what evidence do you have that that's even close to being true? He says those are the kind of details you would expect someone to remember. Notes that if Daniels didn't testify about them, it would have given the defense more ammunition to try and discredit her. In the simplest term, Daniels is the motive, Steinglass says. Okay, sure. Steinglass is moving on to Conan. Notes that the fact that he has an interest in this case. Conan is understandably angered to that to date he is the one who's paid the price for his role in the conspiracy, Steinglass says. Anyone in Conan's shoes would want the defendant to be held accountable, Steinglass says. Conan did Trump's bidding for years, and when it went bad for the defendant, the defendant cut him loose, dropped him like hot potato, and tweeted out to the world Conan was a scumbag, Steinglass says. Steinglass is not referring to Trump by name, just the defendant. Trump wouldn't pay $130K twice that after it was grossed up for taxes just because he took a photo with someone on a golf course, Steinglass tells the jury. Trump didn't pay. It was Conan who paid, actually. Let's see. Steinglass says Attorney Blanche sounded like he admitted that at least as early as 2017, Trump knew about the Daniels payment. Remember, 2017 is when the checks are still rolling in every month. Of course, the defendant knew much earlier than 2017. No, that's not accurate at all, Steinglass. It's not accurate at all. All he knew was that he was paying Conan. He didn't know, there was no mention of the what's it called? There's no evidence for God, what is the word I'm looking for? That he knew about Daniels. He just knew he was paying Conan for, as far as we know, a retainer agreement. Steinglass is now addressing Conan's admission of stealing from Trump by overcharging the organization for tech services. Prosecution says Conan didn't tell Weiselberg it was only 20K. He should have been reimbursed rather than the 50K he claimed. Steinglass adds, and he should have, and that's stealing. We agree. It's true he was never charged with that. He's also the one who brought it to everyone's attention, Steinglass says. Steinglass. What? Steinglass calls out Blanches on what he says was an inconsistency in the defense argument with Conan. You can call him a thief or say it wasn't a reimbursement, but not both. What? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know if anyone caught this, he tells the jury. Blanche says Conan stole 60K because it was grossed up. So that means the defendant is trying to have it both ways, right? They're denying the 420K was a reimbursement at all, claiming payment for legal services rendered 2016. But if true, then there's no theft. He's getting paid for legal services 2017. What? They can call him a thief and claim this wasn't really a reimbursement, but not both. No. The 420K, that was part of that. Now the fucking attorney's fucking lying. So if you guys don't remember, it was 360K that he was originally going to get for the retainer agreement. Okay. The 60K added on top of that was his reimbursement for the whatever it's called. I can't even remember what it's called, but the tech services. So it's 320 he was going to get for a retainer agreement, and then it was an additional 60K for tech services, and I think that was also grossed up. So he can still be a thief, and this could still not be about reimbursement. This doesn't make any sense. Steinglass notes it's true. Conan had made money off of Trump. I suspect he will continue to do that, regardless of the outcome of the trial, he says. Steinglass says Conan has endured the consequence of his actions and is the only one to do so in this scheme. Well, he's the only one that's really been part of any scheme. I'm not asking you to feel bad for Conan. He made his bed, but you can hardly blame him for making money on the one thing he has left, which is his knowledge of the Trump phenomenon. Steinglass also tries to explain Conan's lies to the judge when he was sentenced. He believes the Trump Justice Department did him dirty. Whether that's true or not, he was very forthright about the conduct he committed and accepted responsibility for the conduct, he said. No, he really didn't, actually. He still blames Trump. He hasn't accepted his part. He was, if he wasn't sentenced, he would be like, oh, no, it was all Trump, all Trump. Like, the only part they really got him on, like, accepting it is the fact he was sentenced. But again, he really just blames Trump for it. He blames everyone except himself for it. So that's incorrect. And this doesn't really help him because if I was subject to someone, if someone caused me to go to jail and I was paying for their actions, or they weren't getting the same treatment as I was, and I was the only one paying, would that mean I have more motives to lie? Oh man. Prosecution moving on to the lies to Congress, which he notes with a note of incredulity. What Conan lied about was a number of dealings that the defendant had with Russia. Steinglass says he called it rich and kaputz for Trump to now claim the lies Conan told to Congress to benefit Trump was now a reason to discredit Conan. Well, I mean, yeah, because he lied to Congress. It was proven he lied to under oath already. So what? And that was when he was hoping for a benefit from Trump. What do you think he's going to do when he has motive to want to convict Trump? Like, seriously, if he was willing to lie to benefit Trump, why wouldn't he lie even more to destroy Trump? Let's see. Steinglass has turned to the 24 call and is acting out a fake conversation between Conan, Trump, and his former bodyguard, Schuyler. Steinglass says the defense tried to claim it is the big lie. Hey, Kenneth, how's it going? It seems like this prankster might be a 14-year-old kid. Steinglass starts the fake conversation. Steinglass uses his hand and thumb and pinky extended as a fake phone as he does this. Steinglass pulled up the transcript of the September 2016 call, and said that it lasted 46 seconds. He argues Trump and Conan covered multiple topics in that call, showing they could cover a lot of ground. Even if you're not convinced that both conversations happened, Conan could have gotten the date and time of that conversation wrong. This was not a critical moment in time. This was one of many updates. Steinglass says these guys know each other well. They speak in coded language and they speak fast. Is there any evidence of that actually? That they speak in coded language? I don't think there was any evidence of that. And I don't believe that's what Conan said. He just said he updated Daniels. He didn't say, "Oh, he never said." And I don't think the prosecution even on their redirect said, like, asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, well, the reason it was so short was we talked fast and we used codes, so it ended up speeding up the process." I don't think there was anything of that at all. So now that's just bullshit. Sunglass's defense is trying to have it both ways, telling you Conan would say something to get the defendant convicted, and then point out that his testimony, if you accept it, isn't enough. Well, yeah, it is not enough. All we got is Conan saying is. That's not enough. Even if he was telling the truth about the whole thing, that's still not enough. Okay, because why should we believe Conan, regardless? Like, even if he has a clean record, why should we believe Conan? Like, why? Like, what corroborating evidence do you have? You got nothing. So it's not having both ways. It's showing that, he's lying. He'd say anything to get the defendant convicted. And even on top of that, even if it, we just had that, even if he was telling the truth, that's not enough to get him convicted because there's nothing cooperating. Okay, it's just his word. Prosecution argues it's actually neither, suggesting that if Conan was lying, he could have gone much further in tying Trump to the alleged egalities. So now the prosecution is trying to have it both. Like, he's lying. Let's say he is lying. Well, he would have lied even more. What? That's like a dumb defense. That's like the dumbest defense. Like, that's like if someone came to you and was like, "You murdered this person, all right? We have the evidence that you murdered someone," and then you go, "I didn't murder them," or like if you went like, sorry, let me rephrase. Let me restart. This is like the cops come and they arrest you and like, "You murdered this person. You shot him in the head." It's like, and you were like, "No, if I murdered them, I would have shot him in the head, dragged their body, cut them up into little bits." What? That doesn't fly. It's not gonna fly as a defense. It's not gonna fly for a prosecution. Steinglass says he didn't offer more because he's limited by what actually happened. He's not going to tell you anything beyond that. Okay, so he's telling you the truth now, but he's lied a bunch of times before. Conan was really more of the defendant's fixer than his lawyer. He had a legal title, but he wasn't Trump's organization's legal department. He didn't answer to the general counsel. He answered the defendant correctly. He got the jobs no one else wanted, the jobs that defendant wanted to keep quiet. Again, it was Conan who called himself the fixer. It wasn't Trump. Steinglass is describing how Conan was more of Trump's fixer than his lawyer. We just read that. We didn't choose Conan to be our witness. We didn't pick him to be our witness at the witness store. The defendant chose Conan as his fixer because he's willing to lie and cheat on his behalf. So then, if he's willing to lie and cheat on his behalf, when he gets screwed over, why wouldn't he also lie? Steinglass tells the jury that Trump chose Conan for the same qualities that Trump's attorneys now urge you to reject his testimony for because of it. Well, okay, so let's say that's true. Say Trump picked him because he is a liar and a cheater. Then wouldn't he lie and cheat even more after Trump screwed him over? Right? Like, wouldn't he lie even more and cheat even more just when he got screwed over by Trump? The loyalty for Trump was not a two-way street. Steinglass says, "Look what the defendant did to Pecker." What did he do? Like, what? Pecker saw Trump as a mentor, and Mr. Trump saw him as a useful tool. He corrupted those men around him. He got them to lie and cover it up. Stay on message or you're out. Okay, don't think that's actually true. Steinglass is arguing there's plenty of evidence to corroborate Conan's story. Okay, in this case, there's literally a mountain of evidence corroborating testimony that tends to connect to the defendant to this crime. From Pecker to Hicks to the defendant's own employees, Steinglass says, referring to Pecker and Hope Hicks, it's difficult conceive of a case with more corroboration than this one. What corroboration was that? What they saw of Trump during while he was working when he was not in office? It's not really evidence corroborating Conan. And again, all we got is Conan saying that these wasn't legal services rendered. And apparently, according to the prosecution, there was only 3 people who knew that this was not this was not this was not legal services rendered, that this was a business, or that this was reimbursement. That's Conan, Trump, Weiselberg. They called Conan, can't call Trump, never called Weiselberg. Those you need, you got one person who's a known liar, then you got, and then so like, okay, so you got one person who's a very known liar, and then the one defendant one person you can't call, but you never called Weiselberg. So they're, so what? And let's say all everything they said is true, doesn't really connect Trump to knowingly falsifying documents. Steinglass says defense wants to make this case about Conan. It isn't. That's deflection. Steinglass tells the jury, this case is not about Conan. It's about Trump, whether he should be held accountable for making false business entries in his own business records, whether he and his staff did that to cover up election interference. Steinglass says, prosecution says Conan's significance in this case is that he provides context and color to the documents and the phone records. He's like a tour guide through the physical evidence, but those documents don't lie. They don't forget. Okay, that's true. But again, there's no evidence that those business records were actually false. All you have saying that they were false is Conan saying it. That's all you got. The only thing we have saying the documents were false was Conan. He's the only one who said that. Steinglass says Costello was one of 2 witnesses for the defense, was a double agent working to keep Conan quiet against Trump. No evidence of that at all. Again, that's all just Conan's thinking, Conan's word. Costello came on and say, no, wasn't true at all. Let's see. So the August 2015 Tower meeting with Pecker, Trump, and Conan is the prism through which the jury should look at this case, prosecutor Steinglass says. Steinglass now appears to be turning to tell the prosecution's story chronologically as he returns to Trump Tower meeting and what Pecker agreed to do for the Trump. In a nod to jury instructions, Steinglass says Pecker committed to run certain stories for Trump's benefit, of Trump's campaign. It's not normal, legitimate press function. Okay, but it's something common with all politicians. Like, we all know this. Like, why are we acting like this is something new? We all know if politicians that have the money go to media stores they're tight with and have them run positive stories. And if you don't think they're also having them run positive stories and also doing their best to kill bad stories, you're a fucking idiot. Referring to Trump's meeting with Pecker and Conan in 2015, Steinglass tells the jury the real game changer of this meeting was the catch and kill component. Because once money started changing hands on behalf of the campaign, that's federal election campaign finance violations. Why wasn't Trump charged with that ever? Prosecution notes that Trump's attorney Blanche told the jury there's no discussion of catch and kill during the 2015 meeting. That's true. That's not true. They discussed catch and kill plenty. They didn't use the term catch and kill, but that's exactly what it was. Steinglass quotes Blanche's opening statement. Blanche said there is nothing wrong with trying to influence an election. It's called democracy. In reality, this agreement at Trump Tower was the exact opposite. It was the subversion of democracy. Steinglass accused Trump and AMI of trying to pull the wool over voters' eyes in coordinated fashion. Pecker and AMI stopped engaging in legitimate press activities the moment they agreed to be a covert arm of the defendant's campaign, Steinglass says. Again, this is a common practice. Like, I don't know why we're trying to act like this isn't something that happens all the fucking time. Steinglass continues to zero in on the importance of the alleged catch and kill scheme that Trump was part of with Pecker and the possible role in the 2016 election. You may say, who cares if Trump slept with a porn star 10 years ago before the 2016 election? Many people feel that way. It's hard to say the American people don't have the right to decide for themselves whether they care or not, he says. The value of this corruption bargain, Steinglass says, cannot be overstated. It turned out to be one of the most valued contributions anyone ever made to Trump campaign, Steinglass says, adding that this game cooked up by these men at this time could very well be what got Trump elected. Yeah, sure, okay. Couple bad stories and a couple of good stories they ran. That's what got Trump elected. Okay. Steinglass earlier also noted the defendant has pointed out again and again NDAs aren't illegal. That's true, but besides the point, contracts aren't illegal in of themselves, but a contract to kill your wife is illegal. Okay. Steinglass is now talking about AMI agreement with Trump to purchase stories on his behalf. Once AMI purchased stories on behalf, those purchases became unlawful campaign contributions. But then, okay, whatever. Steinglass now walking through Dino Sanjudin story shows the source agreement documents with the former Trump tower doorman, noting Pecker agreed to pay more than normal for the story. The prosecutor notes that that Pecker did say that Sanjino's story, if true, would have been bigger than the death of Elvis, but Steinglass notes that Pecker said he would have waited to publish the story until after the election because the agreement he had reached with Conan and Trump, they were willing to wait because that would help the defense campaign. That was the only reason. That is a catch and kill. Let's see. I don't remember that part. I'm gonna go with say that's true. That they were willing to wait to after the to publish story until after the election. Okay. I don't remember him saying that. I really don't. But whatever. Oh. Steinglass shows jury transcript excerpt in which Pecker testified about the Dino Sanjudin story that if a story got out to another publication or another media outlet, it would have been very embarrassing to the campaign. Steinglass again says this is not a normal, legitimate press function. Steinglass says the catch and kill scheme to suppress Dino Sanjudin's story was election interference. This is overt election fraud. Okay, that's going a little too far, Mike. The prosecution says telling the jury it was an act in furtherance of the conspiracy to interfere with the election, an illegal corporate campaign contribution made by AMI to Mr. Trump's campaign, and it was made in collusion with Mr. Trump. Okay. I don't think that's really accurate. I bought a story, therefore it's election interference, election fraud. I mean, it turned out to be false, did it not? And again, I don't remember Pecker saying that he would have published a story after the election if it was true. He very well may have. I don't remember that. I'm assuming he did because apparently the defense did not object to it. Steinglass is now moving on to the McDougal story. He walks juries back through text messages between Conan and Schuyler after Conan learned about the potential story. Steinglass is also quickly showing text messages and call logs showing that Dylan Howard was in a loop when Howard went to California to interview McDougal in June 2016. I understand I've got this locked down for you. I won't let it out of my grasp. Howard texted Conan in June 2016. The messages show. Steinglass says Howard wasn't shopping around for a story. Howard is acting in cahoots with a candidate to kill the story, he argues. Let's see. Steinglass turns back to the call that Pecker said he had with Trump during a conference in New Jersey. According to Pecker, Trump said Conan told him about McDougal's story. This is testimony that from Pecker that during the call from the defendant told him that he found out that about the McDougal story from Conan, just as Conan said he did keep the boss updated. Steinglass said. It reminds the jury that Pecker testified Trump called McDougal a nice girl, suggesting that Trump knew her. Pecker also said on stand he believed the story of the affair to be true. Unless you believe that Pecker was lying, this call means the defendant knew Karen McDougal enough to describe her as a nice girl. Trump was discussing purchasing her story to keep it from being published. Trump told Pecker Conan was the intermediate. Trump is deputizing Conan right in front of Pecker so that Pecker knows that any go ahead from Conan is a go ahead from Trump. This call makes it impossible for the defense to claim that Conan was acting on his own here. I don't think that they made that argument. I don't think they made that argument that Conan was making was acting on his own with McDougal. I think the only thing that they're arguing is Conan acting on his own when coming to Daniels. Let's see. Steinglass calls Pecker's testimony powerful evidence of the defendant's involvement wholly apart from Conan. In the McDougal case, sure, but this isn't about McDougal. Let's see. Steinglass reminds the jury that McDougal was willing to sell her story. Her other offer from ABC would have secured her spot on Dancing with the Stars. Also, tell her story about Trump publicly. Steinglass notes, now it's true that McDougal preferred the AMI deal because she thought it would revive her career and she wouldn't have to be the next Monica Lewinsky. But her motivations are totally irrelevant. The question is, what was the defendant's motivations? What were the rest of the co-conspirators' motivations? Their motivations was to serve the campaign. That's what makes this a catch and kill, Steinglass says. Yeah, but McDougal's story wouldn't have really. I don't know. I'm trying to think of I don't even think Trump was. I don't know. I don't remember the testimony, so who knows. Steinglass is going over AMI's non-prosecution agreement, noting that it was omitted to assess Pecker's credibility and help provide context for surrounding evidence. Steinglass says that Blanche suggests that AMI agreed to the agreement because the company was in a rush to get another deal done, as he questions Blanche's logic. Judge overrules an objection to the comment. Because they're trying to close some other deal, they're going to admit to campaign finance violations. Come on, Steinglass says. Pecker was willing to sacrifice AMI's bottom line in order to benefit Mr. Trump's campaign. There's no way to get away from this devastating fact. Steinglass says $150K paid to McDougal in her agreement with AMI is an antithesis of normal, legitimate press function. The definition of unlawful cooperation campaign contribution. Steinglass is now turning to the 2016 recording with Trump about McDougal. He accused the defense of going to laughable lengths in a feeble attempt to cast doubts on evidence on Conan's phone. Here's a new flash, people. Newsflash. People have used their phones, Steinglass says. Asking jury how many times they've gotten a new phone and done a factory reset. Okay. Steinglass also pushed back a question from Blanche's about why Graf, Trump's longtime assistant who was heard on a call, wasn't asked about it. She wasn't even there for the important part of the conversation, he says. Steinglass played the recording 2016 conversation of September 2016 conversation between Trump and Conan about buying the rights to McDougal's story about an alleged affair with Trump. This record is nothing short of jaw-dropping. The recording shows the defendant caviar willingness to hide this payoff. How he knew how much AMI paid for McDougal. Prosecution, you should take this recording to the back. You can play this many times and as loud as you want to hear Trump say 150. It's your decision what the tape says. He said he's trying to do it in a way that's not trying to leave a paper trail. That's the whole point, Steinglass says. Steinglass says the tape shows a presidential candidate actively engaging in a scheme to influence the election by reimbursing AMI for killing the McDougal story, and that's why they're so desperate to discredit it. Afternoon break is the third white. God damn, dude. Taking another break, apparently. Steinglass resumes his closing arguments. He starts 4 weeks before the election campaign. 4 weeks before the election campaign was rocked to its core with the release of the Access Hollywood tape. I don't agree. I don't think that was actually a big deal. Let's see. Steinglass notes that former Hope Hicks testified that the news of the Access Hollywood tape was so explosive it eclipsed the coverage of the Category 4 hurricane. So I guess it was a Category 5 hurricane, he says, of the tape. Steinglass says the jury is showing the jury the transcript of the tape, highlighting the graphic language Trump used. The video was vulgar, to say the least, Steinglass says. I mean, again, that may have been how about Hope Hicks, how Hope Hicks felt in the moment, but didn't really turn out to be that devastating. Most people, especially men, were like, yeah, of course, yeah. Men talk about this in the locker room. Steinglass plays the clips of Trump video responding to the Access Hollywood tape, as well as a timeline showing text messages in the fallout, including communications between Conan and Hicks, Steve Bannon, and Pecker. Conan also spoke by phone to Trump on October 8th, 2016. Steinglass shows the jury. Steinglass is going back through all the details. He's showing the jury once again Trump's comment on an October 2016 rally in North Carolina, where he denies the story about a woman alleging misconduct. Yeah, so so what that's showing is he has had a lot of these. Didn't really end up hurting him. Daniels was a walking, talking reminder that the defendant was not only words. Steinglass says she would have totally undermined Trump's strategy for spinning the Access Hollywood tape. He says, again, you would have to believe Daniels. She was not credible. No one believes Daniels, or not many people believe Daniels. Steinglass is now walking through how these things change for publicist Rodriguez, trying to sell her client's story, Daniels' story, when the Access Hollywood tape came out. Steinglass is going through texts between Howard and Rodriguez in the hours after the tape went public. Steinglass argues the part of the reason the extortion narrative is so bogus is because the negotiation happened between Howard and Rodriguez about AMI buying the story and did not involve Conan or Trump at all when Daniels' manager thought the AMI would buy the story. Yeah, but then they later on went to Trump. So, I mean, they did try to extort Trump eventually. Maybe they didn't go there initially. Actually, for all we know, they could have went to get the deal, and then would have gone to, and then had a high number, and then could what could have been their plan is that, Rodriguez, they could have gone to Access Hollywood, try and get their agreement, say, hey, we'll pay you 150K for this story, and they could have gone to Trump and Conan, or gone to Trump's like, hey, look, I'm getting, I got 150K. I got a 150K offer to buy my story from the National Enquirer. If you pay me, I don't know, double that, I won't go tell my story. Could have been that could have been what they were trying to do. Still would have been extortion. Now again, that's not evidence. That's just my own opinion. So you can't really take that as fact in this case. Shout out to poor wayfaring stranger for the follow. Appreciate it. Just following on the Rumble channel. I appreciate you. Let's see. Okay, so Steinglass argues that part of the reason defense extortion narrative is so bogus is that the negotiations happened between Howard and Rodriguez, not involving Howard was. Why is this? Why are we repeating this? We just saw that 2 seconds later. Steinglass now skips quickly through slides showing messages and call records during a 2-week stretch when Conan gave a bar of excuses to Davidson to put off paying Daniels from October 12th to the 26th of 2016. Steinglass now shows the false paperwork Conan provided on October 13, 2016 to the First Bank Republic Bank about Resolution Consultant LLC, the first LLC Conan said he opened to facilitate payments. Steinglass tells the jury that Conan falsified the business record to open the bank account. Blanche told the jury there's no proof of Conan's word, beyond Conan's words, that Trump knew anything about those records or Conan's activities. Yeah. Like again, like him showing this paperwork doesn't show that Trump knew about it. So this was kind of pointless. Steinglass is now walking through more phone calls as the negotiation over the deal briefly fell apart. He's ticking through various phone conversations, including, he notes, rare calls on the weekend involving Conan and Weiselberg. Steinglass appears to have quickened his pace, flipping quickly through pages of phone logs and messages the prosecution say reveal the timeline of the scheme unfolding. He told the panel a few times since the mid-afternoon break that they'll have access to the evidence during deliberation if they want to read the exhibits more closely. Okay, now here's the thing. Just because there's phone calls going on here doesn't actually link to this being about Daniels and the deal falling apart. For all we know, they're completely unrelated. You know who you don't have corroborating that this was in fact about Daniels? Weiselberg. Steinglass continues to quickly skim through Conan's call logs. Again, I'm not going to try and bore you with every single record here, prosecution says. He notes there were 6 calls in 3 years between Conan and Weiselberg. Well, 2 of them happened the three days leading up to the Daniels payment, Steinglass says. Okay, do you have proof other than Conan saying that this was about Daniels? Like, are you unable to have a call unrelated to a payment just because, like come on, that's a crappy narrative. Steinglass is pointing to a call between Conan and Trump that lasted 3 minutes. Records show the call came before Conan went across the street to the bank to open the account that would complete the wire transfer to Daniel's attorney. This is damning right here, he says of the call. Not really. Again, there's no proof that they were talking about. This could have been something completely unrelated. Like this could like I don't even remember if Conan testified that, and it doesn't appear to me making this statement, but I don't think Conan testified that this was him calling Trump, telling him he's going to open, or maybe he did. But even again, that's still Conan's word against. Yeah, that's just Conan's word. So just because he made a call that lasted 3 minutes and then he went across the street to open the bank, that really doesn't actually prove. Now, could you make the leap? Maybe. But again, you don't have any corroborating evidence besides Conan's word. Steinglass now shows jurors, again, the bank records that Conan submitted to open an account for Essential Consulting, which he noted was false, claiming it was a real estate consulting company. That was Conan, has nothing to do with Trump. Jury is now seeing a record of the wire transfer from Conan to Davidson, calling the $130K payment a retainer. Prosecutor says this wasn't a retainer, it was payoff. Now, it's true, Trump didn't sign these documents himself. That's kind of the whole point, Steinglass says. Then what proof do you have he knew about it besides Conan saying? Steinglass notes that the day Conan signed the wire transfer, October 28th, Conan had a call with Trump. Again, you can have a call and it's completely unrelated. We have no proof. It's just Conan's word. Like, could have called Trump for any old reason. Trump's running a company. Like, I you're gonna have to provide some. Like, okay, there was a call there at that time. Cool. You have proof that's what this was about. Maybe he said, "I'll call you in like 5 minutes or like 10 minutes. I got something I want to discuss with you." regarding this deal, like not the Daniels deal, but a completely unrelated deal. You got to have more proof than there was a call there. Call could have been about anything. Sangala says it's no surprise the payoff happened 10 years after the encounter between Daniels and or Trump and Daniels, and that's because the defense's primary concern was not his family, but the election. He says. I mean, that it could no, it's not actually accurate because you know when Trump was getting elected, there's more focus on him and his family. So a story like that could hurt his family far worse. Let's see. Steinglass is taking through another flurry of calls on November 4th, 2016, when the Wall Street Journal story on McDougal's payment came out, including calls involving Conan, Pecker, and Hope Hicks. I hope you're getting all this. Okay. And again, that's all that has to deal with is Hope Hicks, Conan, and Davidson. That's all this really has to deal with. Let's see. Steinglass is making a point saying that Trump lied in his statements that he had no knowledge of the AMI deal with McDougal. Steinglass tells jurors that they know it's false because there's a tape of him from September talking about it, and AMI Pecker testified he had a phone call about it in June. Jurors remind Steinglass reminded the jury that Pecker testified Trump was upset when McDougal's story came out. He says Pecker established unequivocally that Trump was in on McDougal deal and was upset that it wasn't kept under wraps well enough that it got out in November 2016. And again, while that might all be true, well, actually, it seems to be actually true, doesn't really have to do anything with the falsified business records. And there's again, it's one thing to lie when you're in the not under oath, but it's another thing entirely to lie when you're under oath. And Conan's lied under oath plenty of times. As far as we know, I don't think Trump's lied under oath that we know of. That's been proven, at least. I have no idea. Steinglass is still moving day by day through the timeline. He's showing text messages between Davidson and Howard on election night when Davidson texts Howard, "What have we done?" Okay. It's taking a short break, according to Judge. We're trying to figure out this as we go. He tells the jury, thanking them for making the arrangement to stay later. I'm watching jurors. They look pretty alert to me. I don't think we're losing anyone. I think right now we're going to finish this out if we can. So they want to finish closing. I hope this is done soon. Back in court. Okay. Steinglass resumes his closing argument after a short break. Steinglass is now discussing payments and cover-up in his PowerPoint. Steinglass says after the 2016 election, Conan went around complaining he still hadn't been repaid for $130K he fronted to adult film actress Daniels. Steinglass showed the jury more testimony from Pecker, who said in December 2016 that Conan complained to him about it. I understand he was complaining that he had not been repaid, a portion of the transcript shows. Okay, now, again, doesn't really, he was complaining that he's been repaid, but, doesn't show Trump knew about this. Again, and I don't remember Pecker's story. I don't remember if he said, what this was in context of. Because you can't really the defense can't really say objection. Actually, kind of want to go back to when Pecker testified. Trump trial. Okay. So 5 key takeaways from Pecker's story. Story. Yeah, there's no. So I don't know what the context of that one was, honestly. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what was. Let's see. First day. Oh, hold on. I'm trying to see like what was the context Pecker had of this. Mm, Sorry, I'm just trying to look this up because let's see. Why is it so fucking hard to find out what Pecker said in his test? I don't remember Pecker talking about this. Let's see. Let's see. Looking back, still sorry. I'm just looking through and seeing if there's anything on this at all because I don't know the context. Because I don't remember any highlighting of this particular part, and you would think that would be highlighted. And whenever I have arguments with people, no one's pointing this out. Let's see. Action kill stories, all that stuff. Yeah, there's nothing on this that I can look up, and you would think that would Something big. So it's day 7. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking through this. Let's see. Person. Yeah, there's nothing highlighting this at all. Like there's like specifically linking what this statement was. I'm looking through it and I'm really not seeing anything. Um, let's see. I'm gonna try one more and then we'll continue on. Okay. Daniel. Yeah, there's nothing I'm seeing at all regarding this at all. So I don't really know. Sorry, I've looked through this. I didn't see anything regarding this, and it also doesn't prove that Trump knew about this either. Uh, this could have been in regards to Conan's not getting his bonus and feeling that he should have been being repaid for what he did, but that doesn't mean Trump knew about it at all. I've looked through it and I don't see what this part of this was or the context of it is. I mean, this could have been a clip, snap it taken out. I don't know what that was. And the funny thing too is no one's really highlighted this part, so I'm not thinking there's any credibility to this at all. All right, so Steinglitz is now showing jurors bank statements of Cohen that he brought into Weiselberg. Right on the bank statements, Weiselberg and Conan calculated all the money that was owed to Conan. Steinglass says. You know what's even funny? Even CNN's not highlighting this part, that part. Let's see. Steinglass is now reading the jury experts from Conan's testimony describing the Trump Tower meeting. In his testimony, Conan agrees that it was described as a retainer agreement in front of Trump. Okay. Conan testified he and Weiselberg went into Trump's office to get his approval on the repayment plan. He approved it and also said this is going to be one heck of a ride in D.C. We don't have to prove that the defendant made and created the false entries himself, he says, adding Trump's guilt of falsifying business records when he makes or cause a false entry in his business records. Steinglass says the reimbursement screen, this is causing false entries, period. Okay, but again, it was described as a retainer agreement to Trump. For all Trump understood, this was a retainer agreement. So so Trump still, as far as we know, Trump's understanding was this was a retainer agreement. It's not a reimbursement. So I mean, you couldn't really charge Trump. You could charge maybe Weiselberg with it. Okay, Steinglass brings up the handwritten notes by Weiselberg and McConney detailing payments to Conan. They are smoking buns. They completely blow out of the water. The defense claims that the payments are for legal services rendered. I'm most speechless that are trying to make this argument. Steinglass referenced a passage from one of Trump's book, Think Like a Billionaire, in which Trump called Weiselberg a loyal employee and one of the toughest people in business when it comes to money. Steinglass says Trump lawyers have to tell the jury with a straight face that the handwritten note from Weiselberg and McConney do not prove the payments were for reimbursement to Conan in part of the Daniels hush money payment. Let's see. Steinglass is now walking jurors through Weiselberg's notes, saying that the document stated explicitly that the $130K and $50K reimbursements would be grossed up for taxes. Jurors are all quiet and alert, mostly looking. Steinglass notes again that the $50K Redfish payment was more than Conan should have been paid, and that may matter for his character, but does not matter for the crimes the defense being charged with. Let's see. Steinglass pointing to the handwritten scribbles says that Weiselberg detailed just how he and the defendant and Conan are going to commit the crime. Oh, sweet. Let me check this out. Let's see. God damn. Okay. Okay, so it says 130K wired payment, 35 transfer fees, 50 payment for text services, 180 and 35. So separate paper for 20. All right. Now this shows that that all this shows is that Weiselberg has knowledge of all this. So all this proves here actually is that Weiselberg knew about the 130K wire payment. Doesn't prove Trump did, and that's what they're trying to get. Like all this proves is Weiselberg knew about this, not Trump. Oh, actually, let me scroll down here. Let me see if that. Okay. All right. So let me just. I'll bring that up actually for everyone. So here's this. So it shows the exhibits. So right here. So yeah, 130K wire payment, 35 transfer fee, 50K payment of services. Actually, that doesn't say this is a wire payment here. Okay. Sorry. Let me bring this up. There we go. All right. So, okay. Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah. So, it does outline this. So, yeah. All right. So, it does outline this activity here. But again, I just want to point this out that this proves that Weiselberg knew about it. Doesn't prove that Trump knows about it. And Trump's the one on trial here. Yeah. But also, another thing, again, all I'm saying is that this 130, all right, that shows that Weiselberg knows about it. Doesn't show that Trump knew about it, and they're trying to get Trump on this. So while this could be damning evidence, absolutely, it's not evidence when it comes to Trump's knowledge of it. It just shows that Weiselberg knows about it. You would need Weiselberg's testimony saying, "Yeah, after this, I went to Trump and told him about this." So all we got is Weiselberg knowing about this, not Trump. And also, we don't know whether Conan said this was for Stormy Daniels' payment. I mean, obviously, that's the connection, but we also don't know that for a fact that that's what he told Weiselberg. You would need Weiselberg. Again, they didn't call Weiselberg. You would need Weiselberg to confirm that he told Trump about this and Trump knew about it. Because all this is a retainer agreement. What was talked about was a retainer agreement to Trump. We don't know what Trump was told. Steinglass is explaining the concept of grossing up to the jury. Weiselberg disguised the reimbursement as income, so that means Conan will have to pay taxes, Steinglass says. Did anything you learned about Trump at this trial make you think he would pay someone double what he owes? The prosecutor asked. These documents are so damning, you almost have to laugh at the way Blanche tries to explain to you that this isn't fraud. Steinglass says Trump Org submits false 1099 forms to the Internal Revenue Services and report the reimbursement to Conan as income. Okay. Zangler says Conan probably did more legal work in the first 3 months of 2018 than he did all of 2017, but he still wasn't paid at all in 2018. If he was still doing legal work, why wasn't he paid a dime in 2018, he asked. Steinglass says when the reimbursement was done, the payments stopped. Conan spent more time being cross-examined in this trial than doing legal work for Donald Trump in 2017. Doesn't necessarily have to do any legal work for a retainer agreement to work. Steinglass says Conan got a pretty cool title and used the title of personal attorney as president to generate millions in consulting businesses. He was getting paid to provide access to Trump. He was making way more money than a job would pay, and don't I know that? Steinglass quip. If the jury still have any doubts, the defendant has himself repeatedly admitted the payments were reimbursements. The prosecutor says, really? See, Steinglass pulls out a footnote from 2018 Office of Government Ethics form, laughingly mocking that Trump's attorney, Blanche, used the firm to suggest everything was above board. Yeah, reimbursement for legal services rendered. A 2016 expense which incurred by one of Trump's attorneys, Conan. Oh, let's look at that. It actually might be a little damning. What? That doesn't show this at all. It's just okay. That's not, never mind. It's just the same thing we just brought up. Footnote says in 2016, where incurred by one of Donald J. Trump's attorneys, Michael Conan. Conan sought reimbursement for those expenses, and Mr. Trump fully reimbursed Mr. Conan in 2017. Steinglass raises his voice as he knocks the defense arguments Conan was paid for legal work, noting all the documents match up to what Conan was promised to be reimbursed. Despite this mountain of evidence, the amount he was paid just happened to magically match down to the single payment the reimbursement shows in evidence. Does anyone believe that? It's a good argument here. But I don't like if you click on this here, all it does is bring up the paper trail. and doesn't actually show what the FEC whatever report is. So I don't know why there's a fuck up here. Sunglass is going over the vouchers and check stubs, and that shows the payments to Conan in the Trump organization are generated by account payable employee Terrasoft. Sunglass says Terrasoft is not in on it. She does what she's told and enters the payment as retainers as she was instructed. He says these are falsified business records. He didn't pay a lawyer. He paid a porn star by funneling money through a lawyer. Prosecutors add, I know what you're thinking. Is this guy going to go through every month of checks? Steinglass says he's not. He's going to show one set of checks paid by the trust and one signed by Donald Trump. Again, I don't know what the full form says. Like here, it says this, but like I don't know the context. Because could he not have sought other expenses in 2016 and being reimbursed for those? I don't know. I don't remember seeing this Office of Government Ethics form at all. This is a good argument. It's a good argument. Might be the nail in Trump's coffin. Steinglass shows the jury a December 2017 check cut in to Michael Conan. He pointed out Trump's signature he signed by hand by using his distinctive Sharpie. It's easy to throw just a bunch of money on the wall and see what sticks, but what is the defense actually saying here? Steinglass says. He says that they argued Trump didn't know about the reimbursement. It was all cooked up by Weisselberg and Conan. That's crazy, noting that Conan could only approve invoices up to 10, and no one could sign the Trump checks besides Trump. That doesn't mean they didn't lie to Trump and say, hey, this is a retainer agreement. There's some reimbursements for some of the stuff he did yesterday. Like, you need to show that he knew exactly that this was for Daniel's payment, and they have yet to show that. Steinglass points out that the December 2017 check to Conan was notated for services rendered in the month of December, and yet was cut on December 1st at 9:11 a.m. Prosecutors then asked rhetorically how someone can do that much work to earn $35K in 11 minutes. Well, again, as the defense pointed out, like it was just a be on call. I could pay you the first to be on call for the month of December. Johnny Glass tells jurors do not buy the bogus narrative the defense is selling. The defendant is too busy, referring to Trump. Prosecutor says Trump was in charge of the company for 40 years, and his entire business philosophy is to be involved in everything, down to negotiating the cost of the light bulbs. Steinglass challenges Trump would go through a complex multi-step workaround to get his personal checks to him for signing at the White House through employees' personal address because Trump wanted to retain control over his 80 cable bill because that's who he is. Steinglass added, he's frugal. Steinglass also pulled experts from one of Donald Trump's books, reading to the jury's testimony they heard earlier from the former president's views on his finances. Always look at the numbers yourselves. If things turn grim, you're the one who left holding checkbook. In this combination of frugality and attention to detail, that led Mr. Trump to keep tight reins on his checks. In particular, Steinglass said. I'm just reading experts again. Right when you sign a check, you're seeing what's really going on inside business. If people see your signature at the bottom of the check, they know you're watching them, and they screw you less because they have proof that you care about the details. And again, but we also have testimony that Trump doesn't always pay attention. Moving into the Wall Street Journal on January 12th, 2018, breaking the story that Conan made the payment to Daniels. He says there was a cover-up of the cover-up, which takes us into 2018. How long is this goddamn... God damn, this thing's fucking long as hell. I want Trump... Now I just want Trump not to be convicted just to piss off this guy for making me read all this shit. Steinglass called Hicks' testimony about the conversation she had with Trump devastating. Steinglass was pointed to Hicks' testimony about the conversation she had with Trump about Wall Street Journal story on January 12th, 2018, breaking the story that Conan made the payments to Daniels. I think Trump's opinion was it was better to be dealing with it now than it would have been bad to have dealt with the story coming out before the election. Steinglass then suggests that Hicks burst into tears right after testifying to this because he realized how bad testimony was for Trump. Judge overrules Blanche's objection to the suggestion. Wow, really? That's not even like it's not even damning. That's just saying like a statement of fact. Like it's like, I mean, I'm elected now. I guess it's better to deal with this now that I'm elected and everything, and there's no election there's no election than it would have been to have the story come out before election. That's a statement of fact. That's actually very accurate. Okay, whatever. Steinglass pulls up text from Conan to Maggie Hamberman of the New York Times in February 2018. Big Boss has approved me to respond to complaint and statement. Please start writing and I will call you soon. Steinglass says this shows Trump approved the misleading statement that, well, no, it doesn't prove. It just says that's what Conan says. That stated Trump Org and the Trump campaign was not a party to the transaction between Conan and Daniels. Steinglass also raising again text from Jay Scalua sent to Conan over Signal. Client says thanks for what you do. Again, doesn't have any proof. Steinglass explains how Trump's personal account is an enterprise and can have falsified business records. Trump's personal account is the hub of a wheel with 500 spokes as it receives funds from Trump-owned entities and disperse funds to those entities when needed. New York is the business capital of the world, and whether you're a private enterprise or public enterprise, you have an obligation to keep proper books and records, Steinglass says, in effect, to defending the legitimacy of the charges. A little longer. Conan, a prosecutor is now talking about Conan's relationship with Donald Trump. Conan knew where the body's buried. It was essential to keep him loyal. Steinglass says, April 21st, 2018, most people will flip, but the government let them out of trouble. Sorry, I don't see Michael doing that. Steinglass says Conan interpreted that message the way anyone would. He also reminds the jury that Trump was still paying Conan's legal bill at the time. All right, whatever. Let's see. At the same time of Trump's April 2018 tweet, Conan met with Costello. Steinglass reminded the jury. Conan never really trusted Costello. Can you blame him? You saw Costello testify. Costello told the jury under oath that he only acted in Conan's best interest, which Steinglass calls now a bold-faced lie. Conan wasn't playing Costello. Costello was playing Conan, Steinglass says after showing the jury the email Costello exchanged with a partner in which they discussed getting Conan on the right page without giving him the appearance that we are following instructions from Giuliani or the president. His demeanor on the stand is something you cannot take into account. That's a fact when you're assessing his credibility. Costello was an attorney who advised Conan in the weeks following the FBI raid on Conan's home and office. He took a stand. Oh, I think that's just background. Let's see. Blanche objects when Steinglass begins reading Conan's testimony about his guilty plea, when includes referencing the Federal Election Campaign Act. Before the objection, Steinglass says it's disingenuous for the defense to tell the jury that they should not believe Conan because he repeatedly denied paying Stormy Daniels at all with his own funds. Those lies were told at the defendant's direction and behest of and for his benefit. Steinglass says the tone expressed incredulity at the notion, calling it kaputs from the Trump's legal team. They approached the bench. Steinglass I guess he lost that one. Or Steinglass lost. I don't know. Steinglass is showing the jury Trump's tweets that day after Conan pled guilty. Trump went on the immediate attack. Yeah, he betrayed him. Of course he did. An attack that continues to stay, Steinglass says. These tweets were not only designed to punish Conan, they were also designed to send a message to potential witnesses, Steinglass says, adding cooperate or you will face Trump's wrath. How much fucking longer is this goddamn closing? God damn, dude. Let's see. So Steinglass is reading Think Big, Make It Happen in Business and Life. Another expert can't stomach disloyalty. Like it says in the Bible, an eye for an eye. Take a break. They're back. Oh, okay. So before the break. Okay. When jury's out of the room, go out to me. Blanche argues that to link Trump directly to precautions Daniels took over concerns security would be prejudicial. Steinglass pushed back, saying it was considered in pretrial motions and that defense opened the door wide enough to drive truck through it in suggestions that Daniels was benefiting from the situation. Merchant says, citing the length of Steinglass nations, I think you've gone as far as you need to go with that, and you don't need to go any further. They're back. We're till 8. Wrap it up. Thanks for the. Let's see. So puts on timeline going back to August 2015. Steinglass appears to be using this timeline graphic to summarize his closing arguments to this jury. Prosecution slideshow is pulling up evidence, a piece of evidence on Trump. Mr. Trump was involved every step of the way. Reads PowerPoint. You see reflected here a series of phone calls, 7-minute phone call with Conan Trump on September 29th, followed by a 9-minute call by Conan and Pecker. Next day, Steinglass says Resolution Consultant LLC was formed. The final go ahead. Steinglass highlighted a phone log 26. Conan called Trump twice before initiating transfer, who represented Daniels and Dougal. Thinking about timing of the phone call, they're absolutely critical. Unlike calling the 24th, this was the final go ahead. Don't really have proof of that. Pecker met with Trump at Trump Tower in January 2017. They discussed McDougal. Prosecution does raise one new detail he hasn't mentioned today. Pecker says Trump thanked him for the help in the McDougal story. Okay, doesn't matter. Steinglass is now going over November 4th call between Schuyler and Conan. He tells the jury, I know what you're thinking. How do we know that this call between Conan and Schuyler was actually a call between Conan and Trump? Steinglass says the jury has to look at the circumstance. It makes sense. Trump and Conan would talk during the Media Moon show. So, according to Conan's testimony, Weisselberg said, we're going to pay you over 12 months. That made Conan believe Weisselberg and Trump had already discussed the repayment schedule. Steinglass argued. He says Trump and Weisselberg had frick-frack routine. Steinglass walked through Trump's action across the timeline, including calls, Conan meeting with Pecker, and the fact he signed 9 of the checks, their actions. In addition to overt evidence, Steinglass quickly goes through another summation titled The Defendant Directed Involvement, Pay Up / Cover Up, which he says shows instances of overt evidence on Trump's involvement, including the catch and kill scheme and the payment and cover up scheme, and that includes the 9 checks he signed. The prosecution said it's inconceivable that Trump would be involved in silencing the women, but suddenly stick his head in the sand when it came to the reimbursement scheme. There's no proof that I don't think there's any proof he knew about the Daniels thing. Steinglass also noted that Conan was and is a self-promoter. It simply defies all common sense. He would undertake such a Herculean effort to help Trump and then keep it to himself. He adds, Steinglass notes that Conan told Trump about American MI Inc., so it defies logic. He wouldn't have told him about Daniels too. Trump was the beneficiary of the entire scheme. The payment scheme to reimburse Conan in installments over a year did not help Conan, who need to pay back his home equity loan without his wife finding out. The falsified records benefit one person only. That's the defendant. Let's see. raises the question of reasonable doubt, tells juries not to take defendant's invitation, consider every piece of evidence a vacuum. You got to look at the evidence as a whole. Steinglass tells jurors to listen to judge instructions on reasonable doubt, saying that the people have to prove their case beyond all reasonable doubt. No one is saying Trump got behind a computer generated vouchers and checks, but he sent the scheme in motion. Juries determine intent all the time. As the prosecutor appeared to be winding up the statements, judge, for a second time in a few minutes, sustained a defense objection, telling Steinglass he will instruct the jury on the law. Steinglass says the prosecutor's proven Trump had intent to commit, aid, or conceal a violation of election law. Steinglass says the conspiracy related to election fraud were basically being a dead horse here. You might end up just getting... Let's see. Pecker put the Trump campaign first, to the point he was willing to sacrifice magazine sales to serve the defendant. The magazine publisher AMI was selling rights to the McDougal story to Donald Trump. The prosecutor says Steinglass says AMI was not acting in normal press function, so there's no exceptions. Noting judge will instruct the jury about this. Dude, he might lose this case just because of how long his goddamn closing was. Steinglass says the defense spent considerable time arguing that Daniel's story was killed to protect Trump's family because attorneys know that under law it's not a violation if Conan would have made the payment irrespective of the candidacy. But Steinglass says Conan told the jury he made the Daniels payoff because of the election. Seeing time of evidence, payment was made because of the potential concerns about the Daniels story of 2016 election. It was on tax fraud violation. Listen carefully to judge instructions. It's criminal to willfully create false tax documents, even if they don't lead to willful false payment of taxes, he says. Trump had an incentive to keep the Daniels story quiet in 2018. Steinglass says he's still actively trying to prevent his catch and kill scheme from going public. He still cared. Any single one of these unlawful means enough to conclude Trump Tower conspiracy violated New York state election law. You don't have to agree on which part of the law was violated, he notes. Is he done? All roads lead inconceivably to the man that benefited the most. The scheme shows a whole lot of thought and energy to conceal the truth. Steinglass, when Trump could have just paid Daniels directly. The name of the game was concealment, and all roads lead inescapably to the man that benefited the most. Trump, Steinglass says, after raising lies, shell companies, encrypted apps, and other means. Steinglass notes that Trump has a right to a fair trial and put the prosecution to its burden. Now he's gotten the trial. He's had to stay in court. The law is the law and is applied to everyone equally. There's no special standard for the defendant. Steinglass starts to say Trump can't shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and an objection blanche is sustained. Steinglass wrapped up his closing arguments with a final message for the jury. You have to put aside the distraction, the press, politics, and noise, focus on the evidence and logic inference that can be drawn from the evidence. Use your common sense following the judge's legal instruction. In the interest of justice, in the name of the people of the city of New York, I ask you to find this defendant guilty. Thank you. Finally, fucking hell. He might lose just because of how long his goddamn closing argument was. So they'll be giving instructions tomorrow. It lasted nearly 5 hours. It's fucking ridiculous. All right. It's interesting. They're not highlighting. It's kind of interesting here because they're not highlighting the evidence that kind of apparently would be far more damning. Because I would think this whole thing about the FEC and reimbursement, that would be kind of damning. Um, Hold on, I'm trying to find it. Hold on, I'm just trying to find it. Just trying to find it. Okay, hold on. It's further up here. Okay. So this here would be, in my opinion, the most damning evidence. Right here is 2016 expense were incurred by one of Donald J. Trump's attorneys, Conan. Mr. Conan sought reimbursement for those expenses, and Mr. Trump fully reimbursed Mr. Conan in 2017. You would, oh, wait. No, never mind. That's not damning at all. Never mind. Because guess what? Hold on. It's actually not damning at all, now that I think about it. Because what they could have taught, because it doesn't specify the amount, just says that right here, it just says sorry, you're not seeing my page, but just saying that in 2016 expense was occurred. You know what expense was occurred? This 50 fucking K right here. So that's actually not that damning. And no wonder they're not really highlighting this, because it's actually not as damning as I thought it was. Because it literally could be just talk, because it doesn't, because in this footnote here, that it doesn't actually specify the amount. It just says that Conan had expenses that were incurred, and he was sought to be reimbursed, and Trump reimbursed Conan. So actually, it's not damning at all. Yeah, no, Trump should definitely be found innocent. They haven't proved anything, actually. All they got is, like, if it was Weiselberg, they got Weiselberg, probably, because of his handwriting and everything. So yeah, no, never mind. That's not as damning as I thought it was going to be. I think I was lulled into boredom because of that. And it actually explains why it's not actually being highlighted, because it's not as damning as you actually think. And I bet if prosecution went second, they'd be able to be like, yeah, that was said, because you know what expense was being reimbursed? What Conan stole money from. So, all right. So jury instruction tomorrow. I'm not going to cover that because I'm not interested. We'll get a verdict hopefully soon. So yeah. So that's the end of it. It's been fucking almost 3 hours doing this crap. I almost took as long as the prosecution's fucking shit. So I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm annoyed. I'm gonna go and take care of some things. I hope you have a good day. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you think. Is Trump gonna be found guilty? I don't know now. I thought that last bit was a little damning. I thought that was gonna get him, but then I remembered, oh wait, he did have an expense. So it's not really that good. And it's not that good. It's not that good because CNN didn't even highlight that no, and you would think it'd be damning, but it's not. So, anyways, I hope you have a good day. Peace out. And I will see you tomorrow. See you later.